Well, another week in gaming, another game that starts to look not quite as good as it used to. And in my latest upload, I just had to ask the question, what happened to Soulframe? Now, the game isn't out yet, and the gameplay footage that's being criticized debuted during Tennocon 2024. And my latest upload, I did a good comparison, and I had to spend a lot of time actually going back to old gameplay and just showing it and talking about how good it looked, how unique it looked, how much I enjoyed it. Now, people in the chat were saying they didn't think that it looked that good, so be sure to leave a comment. Be sure to talk in this live stream about what you think about the game. But I actually thought the game had a great feel, and you're going to want to watch the video because I spent a lot of time showing not just combat, but level design and the space and the sort of the unique identity that the game has. And I combed through quite a bit of footage in order to establish that, because then once you contrast that to the footage that we're now seeing, you start to have a better understanding as to why people are suddenly saying, like, what in the world happened to this game? If you're not aware, the makers of Warframe are dipping their toe into sort of an open world, maybe MMO-light game with a lot of sort of Souls influence with the melee-based combat, but you can play it with other people. And Tennocon is their annual thing where they all get together and they talk about Warframe and anything else that they are currently working on. And that gameplay footage showed up in a Reforge Gaming video, it showed up in an Asmongold video, and everybody was like, what happened to this game? This doesn't look very good. This looks kind of rough. And Force Gaming was good to point out that we're only like 2 years into production. So this kind of continues to happen. The theme lately, we just did a show on Friday with my good friend 30 and So Gaming about Star Wars Outlaws, and we're continuing to see games like the closer they get to arrival, things just sort of don't look as good. So that's the discussion today. Be sure to go watch that latest upload. That way you can know what I think. And now it's time to know what you think. And you guys obviously may have not even heard of Soulframe. So if you're hanging out today and watching, I appreciate that level of support to the channel where you're like, I don't even know what this game is, but I'm going to show up anyway. You don't necessarily have to have a vested interest in Soulframe to talk about the discussion today, because certainly the topic reaches beyond just this game. There are plenty of games that continue to do this. Like, we get early looks and we're like, oh my gosh, that looks so incredible. And then the games slowly sort of dilute or devolve or degrade into something else. And worried that that may be happening with a game that I thought looked very promising from the outset. Oh, there's going to be a limited edition Astrobot controller. Nice. Yeah, that's not surprising. It looks very good. Either they're trying to make it feel floaty like Warframe's movement tech, says Parasito, or the animation and combat teams aren't talking to each other that much. Yeah, I'm not sure what the issue is. Guys, also go through the morning ritual. We may end up in writer's room very early this morning. When the gaming news is a little light, we just sort of pick things that I'm passionate about and I make a video about it. And I was paying attention to this game for a long time and I was like, what in the world happened to that game? I was monitoring it very quickly, but this may not be something that really pulls with the core audience, because I don't think this game is as popular or is as known. But we do want to branch out and try and put those games on your radar from time to time. So take a quick second and smash the like button. We're going to have to put this live stream probably on our backs and carry it as the gaming news cycle is slowing down just a little bit as we come out of July and get into August, when things will start to pick back up. Why doesn't my TV show name colors and badges on chat anymore? Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think the OG gameplay looked good. Yeah, Dave, I saw you making those remarks in the chat when the premiere was going live, and I was sort of shocked. I mean, I thought it looked very good. I thought it looked different. It certainly didn't look fast. It didn't look like a Stellar Blade, or it didn't look like where's Kirk? Oh, that's right. We got a show with Kirk today. So we're just going to kind of have to make this work, right? We're going to have to make this work. We do have Q&A. We brought back Q&A. Don't use it right now, but maybe we'll shift to Q&A and just sort of let you guys have a generic, more general gaming talk show if the interest in Soulframe's not high enough, which I totally get. Sometimes games just aren't going to be on your radar, and that was one of the reasons that I wanted to cover this. Is like, man, I think this game has potential. I really think this game could turn things around if they sort of listen to some of the feedback that they are getting. The hand-to-hand combat is rough. It needs a lot of work. I liked the earlier looks at combat. I liked how it was slow. It was sort of methodical, and parries and dodges had a lot of like weight behind them. It didn't feel like something that would be, you know, Lost Soul aside looks fast, Phantom Blade Zero looks really fast, Stellar Blade and Tsushima and all these games where everything is super quick. It's like, oh no, the gameplay in this looked a little bit more slow and thoughtful and methodical, not just like this barrage of swings, parries, and dodges. So I was really looking forward to it. I remember when they released the latest footage and I watched that stag fight with you guys in like a member stream. I was like, that looks good. Like that looks fun. It doesn't look like just any other game. So when they showed the footage at Tennocon, everybody kind of zeroed in on that one sequence and they were like, this just looks kind of bad. And it could again just be they're you know, a pretty transparent company. They have a lot of communication with their community. Maybe they're just like, yeah, this is where the game is right now. We're okay with people seeing it. You know, only a couple of years in, you're going to notice those rough edges. Lisa Kraken says the combat looks terrible. If they don't fix it, the game will be dead on arrival. Yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't think it'd be dead on arrival. They've shown a lot of tenacity and commitment with their games, and I also think not every game needs to have the same style combat. I feel like a lot of the games coming out in the near future are sort of leaning into things that we've seen before, or they feel like other games. And I think that's okay. I think if you nail your melee combat and it feels tight and it feels fun, it's okay if it's sort of reminiscent of other games, but I definitely think something that's a little bit more on the slow, weighty side could be really enjoyable. The issue with Digital Extreme's level, when it comes to gameplay design, you will find the same in Warframe. Oh, you don't think they're good at, like, level design? I mean, I've played a little bit of Warframe over the years, and that was one of the issues I had with it. Was like a salad shooter backflipping through a tunnel. It didn't feel like I could kind of feel immersed in the game. Although I saw footage recently that I did think looked pretty good with like the shooting and stuff. I was like, that game's come a long way. My best friend is pretty close to some of the devs. I'll try to pass on the feedback. Yeah, because I think they had something. That co-op gameplay, they go through that dungeon, and I'm like, this all looks very handcrafted, very unique, very dark and mysterious. And then the latest gameplay is just like an open world with sort of clumsy, sloppy group fighting. It's like, what in the world happened here? You know, is this, or, excuse me, are you guys just not good at the open world, or are you trying to feel out? And this is something I kind of brought up in the upload. Taking very intentional, very, you know, visceral or punishing soul-style combat and then putting it into more of an open world, MMO-light kind of adventure game, those things blending can be tough. Because some of the times, you know, some of the more frustrating times in a game like Stellar Blade, for example, I love the boss fights in Stellar Blade. The only time I ever got a little irritated in Stellar Blade was when there were a bunch of enemies sort of piled on top of each other, and they would kind of like spam through each other, like there'd be like no enemy collision at all. They could sort of like attack through each other. So sometimes that very punishing, very visceral combat, it can break down a little bit if there's too many enemies. So I started kind of adapting. I was like, okay, I'm going to separate the enemies. I'm going to kind of run and try to get them to break apart. And then it felt much better because you're really trying to get those one-on-one parries and those beta attacks. It's more difficult to do that if you're getting sort of like, you know, hit from all sides. And so maybe that's just something that's happening with Soulframe, is they're trying to take that Soul style, sort of moment-to-moment melee style combat where the slightest mistake you get severely punished. And maybe that just doesn't work in group fights as well. Maybe they're trying to figure that out. Because the group fight just looked really clumsy. It didn't look enjoyable. It was like kind of floating around and getting hit and missing, and you know, it didn't look enjoyable. And the boss fights looked really enjoyable in all the previous footage. It was like, oh, you can really land great parries, and you can really sort of, you know, get a good dodge and get a good damage output, or have really good abilities. You know, I think that's when a game feels good, when you feel as if this twisted, distorted, gross boss is going to be really hard to beat, but you have the abilities and you have the, you know, the means to sort of put them back, sort of back on their heels, as it were. I think they experimented with the Soulframe combat inside of Warframe's Duviri update. It's a roguish mode inside of Warframe, more floaty melee combat. Well, let's take a look at some of the comments on the video, and we'll drag the coffee into frame. And there was a gifted member already today, starting off the week with a gifted member. Han shot first, and so did you. Thank you so much for doing that this morning. I know you were trying to get Derek a gifted membership, so thank you, John, always for doing that. I greatly appreciate that. And the goal for the week's 500, because we do now count member pluses and VIP renewals, so you guys can hit really big goals every week. So make sure you're celebrating those renewals in chat, and every little bit of gifting helps out. It supports the channel directly. You can upgrade from a gifted and pick up your own membership for $1. And whenever you guys do that, you get access as a member. You get access to morning coffee. That's how we start the day. And then the writer's room. That's how we end the day. So be sure you turn on your notifications once you get a membership. So we have some comments on the video here. And I had to do a bit of a breakdown of the gameplay up to this point, because I felt like there was a significant amount of change. B41is0 left a comment here. He said, "This is the difference between dream and reality. The first showing is what they wanted to do, and the current showings is what their level of game design is. Everything shown has same mechanic as Warframe, in my opinion. Bad animations and floatiness, and hallmarks of Digital Extreme's gameplay design. It is the thing that the First Ascendant has over Warframe, and Soulframe has not improved upon it." I really hope they take this feedback to heart, you know? I do. And there it is. Tyler Johnson renews his VIP. That moves the member line. And Patrick Q gifts a member as well, taking the member count to 3 already. Thank you guys so much. And don't forget, every 25 I give 5 back. So thank you so much for doing that. Yeah, I hope that you're either... I either hope that you're wrong, B41is0. I either hope that you're wrong, or I hope that they take that feedback into account and they say, okay, you know, we're getting feedback that this looks and feels a little bit too much like Warframe. It's a little too floaty. You know, I don't think they're beyond. I don't think that they're beyond being able to course correct on this one. I think they could take the feedback and, you know, almost have it be their ugly Sonic moment. Kyle Wilkerson with 26 months and a VIP. Thank you so much for renewing as well. And that's 4 members on the day. Lots of hand-wringing excessive doom and gloom for an unfinished game, still a few months away from the beta. Sounds like you didn't watch. I didn't watch the video. I did not do doom and gloom at all. There is a lot of praise and hope for the game in this video. You know, maybe he's reacting to Force Gaming, maybe he's reacting to Asmongold. I didn't do doom and gloom at all. I said, listen, I think this thing can turn it around, you know. Belphegor with the 5 bomb. First 5 bomb of the day takes us to 10 members. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And Mile High, I'm sorry, Belphegor took us to 9. Mile High took us to 10 members. Celebrate and celebrate. Thank you for 27 months of memberships, Mile High. Yeah, I definitely did not do doom and gloom. I was like, look, man, I think they could turn this around. I don't think this is headed to being just another bad MMO. I don't think this is just going to turn out to be some disappointing game. I think they've got the pieces and the parts. I really do. If you look at the footage up to now, I think they have good ideas. I think the game has a unique identity and a unique feel. You know, it doesn't feel like a generic game. We're getting a lot of games lately that when you sort of watch them, you're like, yeah, you know, that looks fun, but it also kind of looks like something that I've played before. You know, I talked about that this morning a little bit with live service games. There's just this absence of a soul where the game feels generic. It's just like, here's content. Don't you want content? And you're like, yeah, but I also want to fall in love with the game. Soulframe in the earlier showings looked like a game that you would become intrigued by. It would be mysterious to you. It would look like something that you would want to sort of sleuth out or solve. And when he was in the open world, I thought, this is a kind of game I could sink a lot of time into. I could I could play this with, you know, my wife or something, you know, and play co-op, you know, if the combat is, you know, approachable enough. Even if not, I still looked at the game and thought, man, I think there's something nice here. This looks like a unique take on this style of game. Yeah, Derek got a membership. There we go. We can pack it up and go home. So I hope they can sort of receive the feedback well. I think that's something they're certainly equipped to do with all the years they've invested into Warframe. They showed up to Tennocon and said, hey, we've got gameplay for this. And, it just did not land the way everybody was kind of hoping it would. That doesn't mean that the game is to be written off or DOA. Whiskey Neat renews a VIP, takes us to 11. Thank you so much, Whiskey Neat. I gave Liza P another chance playing it right now. Just found out who the bad guy is. Only thing I don't like is the parry perfect guard. It doesn't stun. It just stops you from losing health. Yeah, the design around that game is not to use parries to stun, but to slowly whittle down their posture bar, basically to make them stunnable. It's kind of an invisible thing that you feel out. Dungeonborn is a really cool free-to-play dark and darker style game, hands down best in the genre. It should be illegal to downscale or change so drastically from the first showing of a game to release time. It's like false advertising and misinformation. Well, I mean, I don't want to go as strongly as you're going. You're like, oh, it should be illegal. I mean, I don't think we need to start like prosecuting companies because they're like, yeah, we showed you guys a trailer a while ago, and we've had to scale some things down. I don't think we need to turn it into like a legality thing, but I do think there needs to be consideration from companies about how they market. It's incredibly rare for you to put together a cinematic or gameplay showcase 5 years before a game comes out and for it to maintain that look and feel. That's really rare, I think. I think a lot of games struggle with that. When you show a game 5 years later, it's like, what is this? This looks very different. Gwendolyn with 13 months of the VIP. I renew my VIP at like 5 or 6 a.m. I don't know if noties go through. Maybe not. Well, thank you so much for renewing your VIP. I appreciate everybody who is hanging out at Member Plus and above. We do have a fairly large goal for Member Plus and above. And if you do that, we were going to start doing sort of like IRL style content on the weekends. Just as a way to say thank you for supporting the channel directly. Currently, we have 450 people at Member Plus and above, and we would love to see that number basically doubled. So if you've never paid for your own membership here and you feel like the membership is worth it, consider getting off the gifted and upgrading, and then that supports us and it'll unlock more content for the channel. I'm being sarcastic. I don't really mean that. What were you saying? you were being sarcastic. Well, I mean, I think there are people that would agree with you and say, hey, that is a version of false advertisement. Like, you shouldn't be able you shouldn't be able to do that. And at one level, I do agree with you that there should be some measure of accountability with respect to, what they show and what ends up getting delivered. But I also think gamers should have learned their lesson by now. Constantly be watching. Talica renewed her membership. 26 months in a VIP. Popping in with a renewal morning chat. And thank you, Talica, taking us to 13 members on the day. Oh, and this week, we have made a change to Friday nights. Friday nights is always... The goal is to unlock community game night. You guys like to come and hang out with my wife and I on Friday night, and then you also like to play games. So this week it's Fall Guys. They added a bunch of new modes and bunch of fun things that we could do. They allow for private server games, and it's free on every platform, so you have no excuse. You can download that game and you can play it. This last week we did Overcooked, which we had to do Overcooked 2 because that was on PS Plus. Because I wasn't going to ask Creature to buy a game he was going to play like once. So we didn't have anybody join in. But with Fall Guys, we typically have a good group of people that joins in. So keep your eyes on that. Help hit the goal and unlock community game night this week. And make sure you guys are smashing the like button. And you don't have to chime in the chat specifically about Soulframe. You can obviously weigh in with respect to just the idea of games sort of downgrading over time, not end up looking like what they looked like in the initial stages. This is certainly something that we seem to be encountering more and more. And that's obviously something that, we can't rectify, I don't think. I don't think we can stop consumers from saying, oh, hey, that trailer looks good, I'm going to buy that game. because the average consumer isn't going to go to Reddit or Twitter or YouTube to watch like a breakdown or a rundown or have somebody explain to them like, hey, there's a lot of red flags surrounding this title. You know, you might not want to do that. I don't expect the lion's share of the gaming consumers to do that. They're just not going to. They're going to see something cool and they're going to pre-order it, right? The hope would be that review scores continue to be a way to damage a bad product, because I think that that's how it should work. Like, if you deliver a bad product, the consumer should have the ability to, at some measure, reflect that poor quality, and then the company is, you know, sort of justly harmed by that. Like, I don't want to see every studio that delivers a not so great game shut down, but there should be some measure of cause and effect. You deliver a crap game, it should hurt the company, right? As a means of accountability, as a means of saying don't deliver crap games, and, you know, cause and effect, right? Like, don't, you know, undercook food and you don't have to worry about food poisoning, okay? You know, if you're consistently, you know, getting sick because you don't cook the chicken all the way through, that's cause and effect. That's teaching you something. And consumers, I think right now, don't exactly have a direct line for that cause and effect, because you can't refund games on console. You know, I've continued to say that should be a thing. You should be able to refund games on console very easily if they're under a certain amount of time of play, you know, that you've played it. Consumer protection is virtually non-existent on console. Now, you could say, well, that's on the consumer to wait and read reviews, but I think that that's an unfair expectation for all products to be like, well, don't buy it, wait for reviews. Well, that means somebody's got to buy it, somebody's got to bite the bullet, somebody's got to take one for the team, whether it's a vacuum cleaner on Amazon or a video game. And in virtually every other environment, if you get something and you're like, yeah, this isn't as good as I thought it was going to be, I would like my money back, you can get your money back. I think all industries, it should work this way. I think if you go to rent a movie or buy a movie on Amazon, and if you get 30 minutes in and you're like, this is garbage, you should be able to get your money back. Now, obviously, you can't watch the whole movie and be like, oh, I didn't like the ending, give me my money back. Like, I think it's a little bit harder with movies. But I do think if you get to about the 30-minute mark, it could be like, hey, this is about to be a permanent purchase. You can't reverse the charges on this. You're consuming the product. But if you get 30 minutes in, you're like, this movie sucks. You know, you should be able to get your money back. Now, that could pose a problem to movie theaters. Like, everybody's like, well, yeah, you're taking a risk. You're buying the movie. You're buying a ticket for the movie. And if the movie's bad, you just kind of have to grin and bear it. You know, if you buy a ticket for a fair ride and the fair ride sucks and, you know, gives you whiplash because it's old and rickety, you know, that's the risk that you take. But I feel like with video games and the length of time that can be poured into them, there's more ground to say that there's justification for consumer protection at this point. Big Evil says, this has nothing to do with Soulframe, but I asked you about Elden Ring a couple of weeks ago. Just beat it, feeling proud. Hey, man, good for you. That's a heck of a feat. That's a very big game. Are you going to head over to the DLC? If we do that to movies, it'll change how movies are made. Right, like the amount of money that they could make. It might not work for movies. You might just have to suck it up and be like, art is subjective, but with video games, I think it's different because you can pay for a game that's like not ready, incomplete, glitchy, buggy, not working, right? Like if you went to the movie theater and entire scenes were missing, and when somebody went to talk, their dialogue was missing, and you're like, what's going on? You could probably justifiably get your money back and be like, hey, the movie's broken. It doesn't even, there's pieces and parts missing. I think that would be maybe a little bit different. It's not just, I didn't like it. It's something's wrong. Something isn't complete here. Can you show footage of Soulframe? Let me show you what I was compelled by, and then what ended up making me say, this frickin' what? Like, I very much changed my mind. Okay, so they released this they released this 30-minute gameplay video like a while ago, all right? So the first little bit of combat here, he kind of goes in, he throws his sword, you know, guy's going to come out of the tent and he's going to fight him. He's going to get a nice little block here and be able to chop him down. There's a lot of intention to the things that he's choosing to do. There's a slowness to it. There's a methodicalness to it. You know, it's obviously a little bit of punctuated by an ability here, and he gets to kind of crumple him. So to me, right now, if somebody were to say, you know, what is it about this game that you like? I'd be like, well, I like the tone. I think the graphics are good. I don't think they're amazing, but I also don't think that they're bad. I think the graphics are good, and I think the combat looks like a very, you know, unique, slow, methodical experience, you know. And he's going to go throughout this game, and later here they show, like, you know, your home base and, you know, editing your character and all that. That stuff's all fine, well, and good. You know, that's par for the course. You got a skill tree, you got abilities, blah, blah, blah. But then they go through this dungeon co-op. And again, it feels more handcrafted. It feels like, okay, this isn't just like some generic open world. It's a dungeon that's got twists and turns and the ability to sneak around and get stealth kills if you want. So it's like that blend of, like, you know, more of an open world action adventure game, but there's obviously some Souls influence here. And then you're able to square off, you and your buddy here, benefiting from each other's presence as one uses an ability, and then you know, both those enemies got frozen. So everything I see here looks good. I see unique enemies. I see, you know, problem solving. It seems like, you know, they were intentional with the design of the dungeon as you move through it. You know, it feels handcrafted is what I keep saying, right? Like this scene right here, like this guy busts through the door and we have sort of like a mini boss that somebody struck with lightning. Anyways. So then he's going to talk to the NPC again. He's going to go deeper in. He's going to get some stuff. So this is like 15 minutes of just sort of like them going through the dungeon, right? Then he comes outside, and now we're going to get to see sort of his interaction with his companion. Like, he's got like a fox-like companion that he blows like a little shell, and then boom, and he just throws him. The throw is a little Speedy Gonzalez, but that's okay. And yep, you guessed it, you can ride on this guy. I guess he is more of a wolf. In the earliest footage, he looked a little bit more like a fox. That big, huge, bushy tail has more of a fox feel to it. In any case, wolf, fox, whatever. This looks, you know, enjoyable. All right. So this is the footage that I think looks good. I think what you're getting to do in the world looks fun. Little things like this, you know, playing musical notes, solving it. And then let's go to the boss fight. All right. So, boss fight is, at some level, typical, what you would expect. She gets a name, she gets a health bar, she's bigger than you, she's seemingly stronger than you, she's got farther reach than you, her swings have weight, and, you know, they look sort of like devastating if they connect. But there's something about the intentionality, like he's learning lessons, right? And there it is, he finally gets a parry. And he's learning to kind of like, okay, how do I navigate a boss that's this much stronger than me? And, you know, she's putting crap on the ground, grabbing him and hurting him. Yes, I will agree with you that the combat looks clunky, but it looks like it's got its own vibe, right? It's got its own feel, especially those big parries where he knocks her weight, like her entire weapon sort of goes flinging back. And his ability, obviously, there that he used is pretty strong. And he keeps doubting himself. You hold block, and then there's the parry, knocks her back, gets some more damage. So while it does look slow and while it does look clunky, it looks like something that would feel fun to finesse. You know, timing and making those right decisions is something that feels like it's rewarded with good damage opportunities. Then she seems a little bit sort of standard fare. You get to fight this giant stag. And again, I don't think that there's anything revolutionary about any of this gameplay. I don't think they're reinventing anything. It just looked like their own take on moments to moment melee based combat with, you know, big huge parries and, you know, heavy swings, and essentially choosing your moment is what it looked like to me. It was like you've got these fights that are not based solely around, well, yeah, just go up and hack away at this guy, because even there, see, he backs away. It's more about you're going to have to make good choices. You're going to have to, I think you're going to have to really rely on parries at some level, right? I don't know if he can parry the charge. I don't know if he ever tries to. But he gets some pretty good parries against this guy, and he like knocks him off kilter. And then he uses an ability there to, I guess, stun it. Doesn't last for very long, though. See there? Boom. That big parry, and now it seemingly he's broken some kind of a posture bar, and then something came down and stabbed him. Not quite sure what happened there. So I don't think any of that's revolutionary. I just know when I watched that, I was like, oh, you've got really intentional combat, albeit it's a little slow and clunky. You can play with a co-op partner. There's like these handcrafted dungeons, right? There's these areas you can go, okay? So let me show you what they showed at Tennocon that's got everybody sort of saying what in the world happened here, okay? So this is the footage that showed up in like a Force Gaming video as well as an Asmongold video. And essentially what these gentlemen were saying is, what in the world is this? Okay, so now we've got him going stealth, use nature to do things. And so he's going to go up on this little encampment of 4 guys, all right? He's going to miss the back stab for some reason. And then the rest of the fight, as I described it in my upload, I can only describe it as floaty and clumsy. It's just very floaty and clumsy. So you can see there's this 1v1 grit and almost like punctuation to when he gets to like really go in on one person, but it doesn't make any sense. It's like, wait a minute, where did all the slow, thoughtful, sort of almost like Souls-like style combat go? It felt more like a generic, just sort of like MMO encounter. Like, here's some guys around a campfire, you know, I'm gonna go fight them. Hang on a second. It's shaping up to be the 24th. And again, people are now describing it as like some kind of an MMO or something, and I'm like, I don't get why you would switch it to that, right? It was originally described as like sort of like an open world action game, okay? Was some playing at the live show? I am not sure, Paul. I'm not sure. Okay, so then this boss fight got some criticism. You know, Force Gaming was pointing out, like, the camera tends to zoom in a bit too much. Like, right here, it's almost like it seems like it's kind of, like, hard to see. There's a lot of flashing going on. And then, obviously, I guess you're supposed to jump when he does that flash attack. And again, the camera's, for some reason, mysteriously zoomed in right now, which makes it feel very claustrophobic and very cramped. And, you know, this fight is sort of a mixed bag for me, because there is sort of some of that rhythmic and methodical and intentional choice, because he's going to fight him later. I guess the guy just kind of comes in and shocks him, and then he just, like, leaves or whatever. But, and this is why in my video, like, I took all the time to go through that 30-minute video, and I'm like, look at how great this game looks. Look at all the great things you can do. And then this... it's like something happened. It's like the game feels like it's been flattened out a bit. Even these areas now feel more like just like generic open world MMO. Like, where's that mystery? Where's the mystery? Where's the mystique? Where's the, you know what I mean? And I don't expect every area to feel incredibly handcrafted, but I think even in that first sequence where the guy went up to the camp and there was like this like almost like green tone to the game, and he throws a sword at the one guy, and the one guy comes out of like the tent. I don't know. It felt like it had more of an identity, and now this doesn't. This feels, again, just more generic. It could have something to do with the armor that he's wearing. But some of these encounters here with Nimrod, so now Nimrod's back and he's going to fight him. It reminds me of some of those, the stag fight and the other boss fight that we watched. Sort of an intentional, intentional and punishing style combat. Like right there, he was like jumping, because of the lightning. He gets wailed on there, and then he dies. Which, to me, I think is another thing that's interesting in this showcase is they're showing a player seemingly kind of play poorly, you know? And in chat says, Warframe's still getting movement workovers in development even if it's over 10 years old. Digital Extremes release their games in rough states and they perfect them. Right. You know, I don't know if I would say that's okay. I don't know if I would agree with you that it's okay to release a game with not great controls or for it to feel kind of floaty and bad. And I also think it's weird that they're showcasing the gameplay and the player's kind of playing not so great. Like he's failing and dying. Usually you like to watch somebody sort of like take their lumps and then start to fight back. They're like, okay, I get it now. It might be like the First Ascendant, like a set amount of people per zone. I doubt this is MMO. I don't think it's an MMO. It's being described as like MMO. Like Force Gaming kept saying MMO light. And I'm not sure if he was just saying that because like is it because it's multiplayer? Is it because it's the world design as he was watching it? Because as I was watching this, I was like, this doesn't feel like this sort of bespoke, handcrafted, you know, open world action adventure game anymore. It feels more generic at some level. It doesn't fully feel generic though. When they go to the Nightfold where you can customize your character and interact with the NPCs, all of that feels like what we watched earlier. Is that a new thing, getting someone from the marketing department to play the gameplay demo for the teaser? Yeah, I don't know. Like here he's like interacting with an NPC, and while graphically, you know, the game feels a teeny bit in need of some uptake. It feels a teeny bit dated, but again, you're dealing with something that sort of feels like from this world. It's got this unique feel and identity, and I think you get that when they're at the Nightfold, when they're customizing the character, when they're interacting with the menus and things like that. But I don't necessarily feel that in the combat. I'm like, what in the world? They announced it as an MMO at Tennocon. The earliest footage, if you go back, the trailer says it was going to be a free-to-play open-world action game, I think. Let me get the quote exactly right, because I put that in my video. I told people, I said, you know, when they announced this thing, the official reveal trailer is 2 years old, and it says, this free-to-play open-world adventure is heavily influenced by themes of nature restoration and exploration. I don't know if I've ever seen an open-world adventure game described as an MMO. I mean, I'm not saying you can't blend the two, but I think that's that feels like an incredibly weird strategy to basically launch it, call it a free-to-play open-world adventure. And then at Tennocon, they say MMO. You have to spend money if you don't want to. As far as I can tell, they announced it as a free-to-play game. Just means the game looked gray and washed out. You know what? In a world where every game looks like somebody like puked Crayola crayons on them, I'm actually okay with a game looking more dark and dusty and kind of gritty. Every game sort of looks too colorful lately. It's like everybody loves purple all of a sudden. Everything is bright greens and bright reds. It's like Christmas lights, you know, woven throughout the game. I'm actually okay with the game being more subdued in its color palette. I don't think that's necessarily a problem. I feel like the last couple of trailers we've watched, we've been like, oh my gosh, it's just, you know, it's just color overdrive. Now maybe the engines and some of the technology is allowing them to add, you know, more color than they used to. I don't know, but I do feel like that's been a trend lately, is like games are like uber colorful. How can a free-to-play adventure game generate money? Yeah, I don't know, Eugene. Some type of ongoing content structure or cosmetics or something. Everybody wants to be Fortnite color-wise. Yeah. I don't think this is meant to be a live service game, Garth. I don't think this is meant to be like again, they're describing it as an MMO, which what does that mean? Oh, you left a comment on the video, Venst. You said, just me, or does it look gray and washed out? I don't mind a muted color palette. Everything seems super colorful these days. Like, I'm actually okay with that. I'm actually okay with the color palette being more muted and more subdued. That doesn't mean you can't have moments of flash and splash. Like, I feel like Elden Ring did a really good job of this. Like, there were times where the game feels very muted and very drab, and then there are other times where it's very bright and colorful. I think they did a really good job with their art direction and their color choices. How do you keep someone coming back and spending money without having MMO features? We got into this a little bit this morning during morning coffee. A great reason to be a member. So consider becoming a member or gifting members. That's a morning segment that we do just for members. It's how we start the day. And we kind of got into this morning, that I feel like one of the dilemmas that a lot of these games are facing is that there's no opportunity for romance, right? If you picture those early encounters with a game like a first date, when you have to do live service, you have to either like puke a bunch of information on the player with roadmaps and lots of content, but then structurally you also have to make your game somewhat repetitious. You have to have like somewhat of a small circle of experience, which means you're already sort of going through the same motions very quickly. The First Descendant's a great example of this. And so I do think that ends up making the game, and that's something I'm sensing with Soulframe. It's like I watched those early trailers, and it felt very much like a game that would do that. It would almost romance you into loving it, into putting lots of hours. Those early experiences, those early story beats, establishing the world and the, environmental storytelling. All of that feels great. But then the latest gameplay, it's like, well, now it's starting to feel like one of those more generic open world, like MMO light games where you want the player to play a bunch, so you've got all of this non-bespoke, non-handcrafted content just sort of everywhere in the world, and that's where you get into clumsy gameplay. You get into gameplay that doesn't flow quite right. 5 guys just sitting around a fire. It's not handcrafted. It's not scripted at all. I don't think every game needs to be scripted, though, but I do think then it leads to what we saw. It's like, that just looked kind of generic. That just looked kind of throwaway. What the world was that? And then the earlier trailers don't look that way. Like, you could not like the slowness of the combat or the clunkiness of the combat, but at least it had its own feel. It had its own vibe. It was like, oh, it's sort of got influences from other games. Like the way he throws the sword reminds me of God of War a little bit. The way he swings and parries reminds me a little bit of like Dark Souls, a little bit of Sekiro. But it's clearly just influence. It's not copy and pasting other games. It's got its own identity into how they approach combat. So I don't know if we're sensing true dilution. Are we sensing rough edges? Did they decide to pivot this game into more of an MMO? And does that then therefore require them to create more quantity of content, which drives down handcrafted feel, drives down the quality? Because then you just need a bunch of things for the player to go do. You need a bunch of encounters and enemies and sort of open world space just to kind of traverse through. This isn't Game Pass. It's always going to be free to download, just like Warframe. How do you think they're going to try to make money in this game then? Anne, have they said, like, you obviously seem to be sort of in the know and follow digital extremes. Have they given any indication how you can spend money in this game ongoing? How MMO is Warframe? Actual ask. I would say it's on the lighter side of MMO. I would say it's on the lighter side because it is ongoing. There is a lot to do, but it doesn't feel like a Warcraft or an EverQuest or something like that. More in the line of like how, Destiny has MMO feel to it, but it's not like a traditional MMO. Is the game going to have some sort of social aspect? Warframe makes money off of social item trade and cosmetics. I don't think so, Parasito. It doesn't seem that way. Yeah, the Quidditch Champions game, the Quidditch Champions gameplay. Yeah, you can tell by watching that gameplay why they didn't put it in Hogwarts. It wouldn't have worked. It would be like PoE or an ARPG, just seasons and skins. I mean, I could kind of see them doing that with this game. The outfits and the way you can customize your character from one to the next is very different. Warframe is an MMO that is an automatic matchmaking, so it's soloable. You can also make private lobbies with your friend. It has multiple social spaces. Cornac says, the same way as Warframe, I would assume that buying weapons, armor, fighting style, augmenting your character, kitting them out. I don't think that people would be as receptive to that in a game like this, though. I think they would expect it to feel more like an adventure, very light RPG mechanics or something like that, like finding loot. The loot might be more powerful. You might not have like a traditional skill tree, but you have the ability to adjust your build. You've got like your three, it was spirit, courage, and something else. Like they've got like the three tenets of how you can build your character. And that is, so it's got like light RPG elements in it. You wouldn't call it an RPG. You'd call it more of like an action or an adventure game with some light RPG influence of like, yeah, you've got like a skill and you've got like a way to like build your character. How can anyone of that matter with apparently a single player game? I'm not sure what you're saying. Jason F says, if this game feels anything like Warframe, it's a no-go for me. I thought the combat and the movement were so floaty in Warframe, but that's been a long time ago. There have been people that have observed and they said that the floatiness is directly from Warframe. Yeah. So that could be an issue with why they haven't really nailed the feel of combat, is that they're fighting with their own, maybe they're fighting a little bit with their own engine, or they're fighting a little bit with core elements of what they, how they apply move sets, like just like rolling on the ground or evading an enemy. They could have, elements of those move sets and foundational choice that just makes it not really translate well into a game where when you roll quickly away from an enemy, you want it to feel crisp and tight and almost like you want it to. This is a weird word to use, but I kept coming back to the word graceful. You want your character to have a little bit of grace in the way that they move. There needs to be a little bit of gracefulness. It can't be this like clumsy, like the way you move in Helldivers 2 is really clumsy, but that's intentional. It's how it's supposed to be. How can any of that stuff, seasons, cosmetics, matter if it's single player? I think that's an actually really good question. Like, could you do seasons, ongoing content, cosmetics, and that type of monetization in a game where lots of people are playing it like a single player game? Like, would that be possible? Like, were people playing Diablo 3 that way? Were you grinding seasons by yourself and just sort of outfitting yourself and, getting the cool prizes? Or were you treating it more like a light MMO where like there's other people constantly in the game to play with? I can drop $70 in the store and get the newest Warframe instantly, or I can grind for 2 or 3 days and get it through gameplay only. It's a system that suits many. I guess when I look at God of War, and I'm only using that in comparison because it's another over-the-shoulder action, Kratos felt so heavy yet agile. He never felt floaty, and I think that's what this is like. I actually think that's a really good example. I would also use Gears of War as an example of, you can have kind of a big clunky brute of a character who has like a graceful agility when they roll, when they take cover, when they get out of the way, things like that. Like when they do like a little bit of a dodge. Like there's like an element of grace to it. They don't like they look and move like a brute. Like there's a clunkiness to them. But there's also this sort of like agility where if they need to get out of the way, they do it in a way where it kind of looks cool or it kind of feels cool. Like I think sometimes games that want something to feel more clunky and more heavy, it ends up feeling like when did you guys get a full view of the shirt here? There you go. Another new one from Into the AM. I think a good word to use is intentional instead of graceful, at least with larger characters. Right, but you can intentionally move a character, and if they don't move in a graceful way, it can feel bad. Like, if I roll and my character's like clunkily or floatily moving, sure, you let me intentionally move. I have volition over the player, but he doesn't move. He doesn't have any gracefulness to his moveset. He looks like an idiot. Does that make sense? Like, I don't necessarily think it's bad if a character has more of a clunky move or a slower move set, but I definitely think that whenever you're playing a game like this, you almost subversively put yourself in the game, like you feel like it is you, and you don't want to look stupid, you don't want to look clumsy. There's a reason no one ever wants a Souls character to fat roll. Well, there's multiple reasons there, right? It doesn't look graceful and you're slow. You're going to get hit, right? The concern there would be twofold. You know, you'd have to roll so early that you may end up feeling like it just isn't enjoyable. The end of the year DLC for Warframe this year is called $19.99. They'll be adding motorcycles to the game, so that will be a test to see if they can get heaviness correct or not. This game is a ways away, so I'm not super concerned that they've like fallen into some kind of a rut. I just hope they take the feedback and say, oh, this game could be very, very special and a huge departure from Warframe at the same time. I mean, the character feels like they're moving with the player's intention in synergy with the character's design. I personally don't think 350-pound sumo pros should be dive rolling into cover. Yeah, I mean, I could see how, like, the diving and the rolling in maybe Gears of War, somebody might be critical of it. Like, maybe it looks a little bit, silly, or like maybe you think it looks unrealistic. But I definitely think that that's an important aspect of why Gears of War was so enjoyable, was that you were this big, clunky soldier, almost like vroom, 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 pounding the ground. You sort of run like a linebacker. You just sort of like lower your head and just like charge with your shoulder. And I think you still had like speed and agility that obviously looks a teeny bit unrealistic, but I think that that's okay. The way that they sort of like dive and roll in that game, there is an agility, there is a speed to the characters that I think is very good. They're running an alpha right now, just checked Reddit. I made sure to make that allowance in the video. I said this is pre-alpha footage, so a lot of this could just be those rough edges. I just hope that's not the direction they're taking the game. I completely agree with the general notion of graceful execution of mobility. I think I'm disagreeing with mobility itself being graceful. No, I think maybe you're misunderstanding me. I'm not talking about mobility being graceful. I'm talking about the animations and the execution. Like, I think we're in agreement. You're just maybe not understanding, or maybe I'm not explaining my position very well. I'm saying that, like, when you move and you roll, it's not just like, oh, I need to be agile. It needs to look as if there's an element of gracefulness to it. Like, this guy knows what he's doing. He rolled out of the way. He dodged to the side. He kind of took like a little step backwards, whether you're taking like a 1 step back or 2 steps to the side, 1 hop this time, whatever it is that you're doing. You want those animations to communicate a level of gracefulness so that the person doesn't look dumb. You could remove all of the grace from Gears of War and make everything look a little clunky and clumsy, and yet still have the speed to get out of the way. We're in agreement. I'm using mobility as all player movement, including animations. Oh, no, yeah. When I say mobility, what I'm thinking of is the player's volitional choice to go from point A to point B in sort of a quick way, and the animation can be good or bad, and you can still get there just as quickly. There are plenty of games where like you roll out of the way and it's quick and you look stupid. You're like, what the heck was that? And then there are games where it looks really, really nice, and I think that's part of the immersion, is you want to feel cool while you're moving around. It's got some form of co-op, but I'd never want to play a melee game cooperative like this. I don't know. I kind of like the dungeon co-op gameplay that they showed us. I thought it looked good. I thought it looked enjoyable to have like a buddy with you down in the, almost kind of dungeon crawling together a little bit. Yeah, the PSVR 2 is on sale. There also looked like there were some price drops on PS5. Maybe they're getting ready to, you know, announce or drop something. I don't know. Or they're trying to get rid of the PSVR 2 stock. I'm not sure. I'm nervous about that because I think that they should have invested way more money into big first-party property and big first-party killer app releases, and they haven't done that. So maybe they're dropping the price, hoping that the Steam app and all of that can lead to, you know, maybe a resurgence of people wanting it, which then could lead to a resurgence of games being developed for it. I don't know. So, got the PS5 announcement. Oh, PS5 Pro announcement at TGS. Yep, very possible. Very possible. We covered that recently. I said it could be either a showcase before TGS, they do a showcase at TGS, or they announce at TGS. I don't know. There's a variety of things that could happen in September. It was a huge mistake to call it Soulframe because it's not going to be a Souls game. They mentioned that it's not. It's clearly influenced by Souls games, though, so I don't necessarily think that's an enormous problem. You know, like the slowness, the methodical, the parries, the heaviness to the weight of the swings of both the enemy. I think that. Yeah, I think there's definite Souls influence. And I don't want every game to feel like Souls anyway, so I think I'm okay with a game, you know, clearly trying to say, hey, we've been influenced by Souls, come play our game or whatever, and it not just blatantly feeling like a Souls game. What's that game? Wu Chang Fallen Feathers has looked like it's gone through a bit of an evolution because originally it did look like very much just like straight up Souls animation ripoffs. V-Game Veteran gifts 5 members and takes us to 18. You guys need about 100 members a day to hit the goal, and you're well on your way. 19 members now with Sneaky Wolf's VIP renewal. I think Spider-Man 2 DLC shows up at TGS, honestly. I think that's a good bet as well. We are counting member renewals, member upgrades, and gifted members in the count. And if you guys get 500 by Friday night, we've turned Friday night into community game night. Every week you can unlock that, so you don't just get to hang out with my wife and I. You can play a game with us as well. And this week, it'll be Fall Guys. An hour ago, SkillUp says Austin does not recommend Flintlock. That's a bummer, man. I thought that game looked very promising. It's gotten a lot of mixed feedback, a lot of mixed results, which is a bummer. Dark Souls Warframe. Well, we've talked about this a little bit with Concord, and we could maybe transition into more of a general gaming Q&A, and you guys can use that question command to submit questions, and I'll have them pop up at the bottom of the screen. I do think that, and we've talked about this a little bit with Concord, where bringing the hero shooter to Battle Royale worked really well for Apex. Bringing the hero shooter to the tactical econ-based shooter with Valorant has worked very well, right? You can bring Souls influence to another game type and I think execute it well and make it awesome. I think you can. It doesn't need to be Souls. I think you can have Souls influence. I mean, there was Souls influence in Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. There was clear Sekiro influence in Stellar Blade. But I feel like they built their own game. They built their own take on it. So I think you can do that. I think you can say, hey, we're gonna take Souls and put it into something else. We've seen that with Salt and Sanctuary. You know, they took Souls, they put it into a side scroller, putting it into a different genre, different environment, different game type. I very much dislike aggro switching in melee games. Enemies attacking your buddy, and then all of a sudden it switches to you. Just rather they attack me the whole time. I could see that being an issue. Guys, take a quick second and smash the like button as well. We periodically do these streams that are more about something that I particularly want to talk about, but Now it's time for you guys to kind of talk about what you want to talk about. We got about an hour before I'm going to shift gears and talk with Kirk about, are there more game delays headed our way this year? In the wake of Stalker 2 getting delayed, many are speculating that we might start to see more as the fourth quarter continues to get jam-packed. And we know the fourth quarter gets a little slippery and games start to slip into the next year. So now for the next hour, this is your time to do gaming Q&A. You can type !question and then a space and then your question, and Nightbot will grab it and I'll throw it on the screen. So you've heard what I've had to say. And, if you're like, man, I'm not really into this Soulframe topic or thing, that's totally fine. We can sort of shift it into, now you guys can kind of dictate what we talk about. They're used to develop Warframe with this extreme fast-paced floaty combat and movement. It may be hard for them to move away from that. It almost feels like they really tried to run in the opposite direction with Soulframe. It's like, no, we're going to slow everything down. We're going to make it very, very clunky and slow. But then there's that undercurrent of, yeah, but it's still kind of floaty and fast at times, right? And Lido renews their membership and takes us to 20 members on the day, putting us a 5 bomb away from 25. Thank you so much, Lido. Curious if you have any thoughts on the next New World update. My thoughts on New World are that I think that game is incredibly pleasant and enjoyable to play from a PvE perspective. However, I continue to wonder if the blending of like MMO games and MMO style games and with like more action centered combat, like, is that going to work? I think it can. I just really wonder, because I remember that was one of the things I liked about New World, but now going back and kind of looking at the gameplay and maybe playing a little bit and kind of like dipping my toe back in the water, it's almost like, yeah, but it doesn't quite feel as good as I want it to. I really need that moment to moment to feel better. So I'm not sure. I've not looked too much into the New World update for PC. I have continued to say that I think New World could do very well on console because it feels like a middle of the road. It's like the mid lane player's MMO is how I've kind of described New World in the past. It's the mid lane player's MMO. It's built for someone that is going to be, a little bit more busy. Or a little bit more, they can't play a game constantly. They've got to. You want me to skip that question, Lone Wolf? You want to resubmit? I'll just go delete it. I'll just delete your question. You can resubmit, my friend. Closed beta is going through Wednesday. Yes, the New World closed beta on console, I am aware of it. I've seen, and I did get in. I obviously can't tell you anything. I'm just going to go back to my original statements and say, I think if they do things properly and if they can nail the feel and vibe, I think that game could do well on console. So, all right, let's get the first question up here on the board. Parasito says, and if you guys want to use this, you can use that command in chat. We're sort of shifting. The next hour or so is just going to be your show. You guys can submit questions about gaming, and I'll answer them. And Parasito says, if the market takes the nosedive that some people are claiming, will gaming manage to survive along with streaming like it did in 2020? I think a lot of the predictions about gaming doing a bit of a nosedive are made by people that are kind of cashing in on fear and uncertainty and doubt. They're kind of doing some FUD, if I'm going to be quite honest with you. I read a lot of financial analysis that seemed to think that gaming investment would stabilize in the next couple of years because hiring would go back to more healthy and more predictable and more slow rhythms. And then those sort of from the outside, those who like to invest in gaming would start to invest again. So right now, investors are a little bit hesitant to throw a lot of money into the gaming market because of everything that's been happening. They overhired in 2020 and 2021, and these companies are now course correcting. The layoffs and the studio closures are probably not over. There's potentially going to be more. And that's just making investors say, hey, whoa, I'm not putting money into gaming right now. They've got to kind of calm that market's got to kind of calm down. Because right now you could back a piece of property, or you could back a project that just absolutely blows up and doesn't go anywhere. I also think one of the reasons that these investors are going to be a little less likely to put money into gaming right now is because everybody's trying to get a piece of the live service pie. And I think that's challenging. It's challenging to know where that's going to end up. It's challenging to know if it's going to, make it. It's like, well, I'm not going to back a live service game. These live service games keep propping up and failing and, disappearing. There's too many games being made. Shrinking, that would be a good thing. There's also that as well. There's that as well. There's almost too many games being made that it's hard for the smaller or more mid-sized games to stand out, and there are some really good ones out there. So Kraken says a lot of companies are definitely going to be rethinking their budget when it comes to games. Example, Kill the Justice League's $200 million loss. I doubt the WB will do that again. I think the WB will just back property that's more likely to make money, like Harry Potter. So hundreds of games released every week. Like, what are they doing? Bit of a land rush, It's a bit of a land rush. I think people are like, oh, there's a ton of money to be made in the gaming market, and I think that's one of the other reasons that you're seeing games release before they're ready. I think that's another thing that's going on. Is you're clearly seeing games come to market and they're just not ready. Like, they're trying to get to market as fast as they can because it feels like a bit of a land rush right now. I'm not sure why Nightbot's not grabbing Kot's Tots question. We don't have it limited to members only. Anybody can ask a question with the question command. Obviously, if you troll it or misuse it, we'll just time you out or have to ban you. Like if you make it offensive or something, I can't put that on the screen. Thousands actually counting mobile and PC. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I want the market to shrink. I feel a little bit differently about it. I almost want the market to slow down. It's like if you would just slow down, your games would be better. Then they could come out and there's like almost like zero problems with them, right? Or less problems with them. Lito's question got in right away. Let me make sure I don't have any weird stipulations. Oh, no, I do have it set to members only. Oops. I tell you what, for now, I'll let everyone use the command. I thought I had it set to everyone. We just have so many members the other day. I thought it was set to everyone. I just made that change. Sorry about that. We can reserve Q&A for members if we feel like if it gets trolled by like bots or something. But generally speaking, we haven't had that issue. So, Kot's Tots, you'll have to resubmit your question. Let's go to Lone Wolf's question. He submitted one here. He says, have you gotten to see more of Marvel Rivals? If so, has your opinion on it shifted at all? I tried it out for a bit and really enjoyed playing the Conquest mode with Iron Man. I am seeing good response and generally good opinions of Marvel Rivals. I think Marvel Rivals has a couple of things in its corner. Number one, it's got the broad appeal of Marvel characters. Number two, people are looking for something to kind of replace Overwatch, although Overwatch still seems to be doing fine, with player engagement. There's also the possibility that, Overwatch completely screws everything up. But didn't they announce they're going to experiment with bringing back team sizes that they got rid of? I think they teased that, right? Overwatch changes team size. I thought they said recently they were going to consider testing 6v6 again. Blizzard says Overwatch 2 could go back to 6v6. So I'm curious if they're wanting to do that because maybe they're worried about some kind of an exodus or teams or pros or whatever pivoting to rivals. I don't know. I don't know why they would just randomly be like, the timing is a little suspect in my mind. It's like, Overwatch made that big change to Overwatch 2, got lots of negative feedback. They stood by the decision. And now right around the time that Marvel Rivals is trying to make it splash, they're like, yeah, we're considering doing 6v6. Like, oh, okay, yeah, sounds a little convenient on the timing there. So, guys, in about 50 minutes, I'm going to be hanging out with Kirk talking about game delays. Take a quick second and smash that like button, and you can submit questions now. We are doing Q&A. Because Soulframe, we talked about it for about an hour, but some days the topic, we're just going to pivot it and let you guys sort of drive the topic. And I got a question here from Lido. Will we ever get some reaction content from you again? It'd be super interesting to see your input on certain gaming-related videos. This is one of the biggest problems that we have right now with trying to do certain types of content. A lot of guys reach a certain size and they'll start putting that content elsewhere. And they'll have a channel just for that. Yo, thank you so much, Cots Tots, for renewing your membership. Member Plus, bumping you here to 21. Thank you guys so much. We're so close to 25. A 5-bomb would be an agent of chaos. When you're a certain size, you can justify that. You're like, yep, let's make another channel. It'll immediately get a bunch of subs. It'll immediately get monetized, and we'll be able to put more content out there. Right now, if I were to take the time to make a reaction video, send it to my producer, have him edit it, have him make a thumbnail, have him tag it, title it, describe it, and put it on a channel, it would ultimately do nothing for us other than waste our time. We don't have the energy and the time. We're a 2-man operation that does the work of 7 people, right? And because of that, we have to be very, very, selective with what we focus our energy on, okay? Yo, Dumby Koala, welcome back as a member, taking us to 22. So we have to be very, very selective what we focus our energies on, because it's just the two of us. So if we devote time to me reacting to a video, that's time then that I have to take that separate recording, upload it, so then he can go grab it, pull it down, slice it up, edit it, intro, outro, tag, title, description, thumbnail. While he's doing that, he's not doing something else, right? While I'm making that video, I'm not doing something else. And that's the big dilemma that we're facing right now, is in order to maintain what we do here, which is generally an upload a day Monday through Thursday, a ridiculous amount of members-only content, and a live stream, sometimes 2. We do 2 live streams on Friday if Mike's in town. Mike's back in town. Mike's available now. And then we do 2 live shows on Monday. That amount of content gets really disrupted if I suddenly start trying to do something else. And I liked doing the reaction content. I did. I would love to have a Let's Play channel where we would just go and I would just be like, hey guys, thanks for tuning in again. We're working our way through, in this particular time, I'd be like, yeah, we're working our way through The Last of Us Part 2. You guys would have seen me work my way through Stellar Blade. You would have seen me work my way through Rise of the Ronin, right? Now, the problem with that is that I played so much Rise of the Ronin and Stellar Blade in the evenings to get through them. That would have been really difficult to do daily as a streamer, because that's just, well, then when am I going to make my upload? When am I going to write my monologue? When am I going to research the topic? So I miss doing content like that. I really, really do. But it's I've got only so many hours in a day. I'm married. I got 2 children. They take a bunch of my priority in the evenings. I'm about to be coaching 2 different soccer teams for my kiddos. And then I'm involved in my church. And it's just it's really, really tough to make any more content than I'm already making. And believe me, I have lots of ideas. I have lots of other things I'd love to be doing. I've got other projects I wish I had time for. And sadly, I just don't. You know? It's one of those things. You got a limited amount of hours in the day, and you got to use them as effectively as you can. We got another question here. Guys, there's no queue right now with questions with Q&A. There's no queue. You're not going to be like 18 questions down if you submit a question right now. And Kotz Tot says, how's your 2080 Ti holding up? Do you plan on upgrading it soon, or are you happy? I generally don't play a lot of PC-only games. Audience isn't receptive to it. I don't really like to do it because then I can't play it in the living room without setting up a separate rig and then making sure the separate rig is all up to date. I prefer to just play console right now. That's kind of where I am in my life. I'm not like maining a game. When you main a game, it's a little bit different. Like when I mained Destiny, it was like, well, I'm going to play on PC because I got the best performance there. I also streamed it 6 or 7 hours a day, so I was right there, and so was the computer. If I would have been playing Destiny primarily in a more casual way in the evenings on my couch, I don't think I would have played on PC. I would have eventually shifted back to console, especially once the Series X and PS5s came out. I was like, I would just use that. Nobody with 28 months. Thank you so much. Taking us to 23 members on the day. And in about 45 minutes, we're going to be hanging out with Kirk, guys. So you got some time here to gift members, smash like, and submit questions. Parasita says, if you could... Oh, wait, hang on. I need to put that on the screen. I'm so used to reading chat. Parasita says, if you could have complete creative control and direction, what game would you make? Right now, what I would really, really love, is my wife and I really liked Gunfire Reborn a lot. I would really like more games like that. How do I ask a question? The guys in chat are doing it right now. You can see they type ! Question and then they type a question. I would absolutely love a very thoughtful, I think like third-person shooter rogue is what I would like right now, which is so weird. Because like I used to just not like rogues at all. But where I am in life, it was like the perfect game. And yet, I really wish rogues would be more thoughtful about like checkpoints and save points, because I think my wife and I would work on Returnal, but the checkpoint system doesn't work for co-op, which is a humongous bummer for Returnal. If you're playing co-op and you suspend the run, it should say, hey, you're currently in a co-op game. Do you both want to suspend and save this run? And then when you go to come back later, it would literally say, you're unsuspending this run. You need your co-op, you need your co-op partner or whatever. I know for a fact, I know for a fact that we would play Returnal if the checkpoint system worked better. No, don't put a period, citizen. Just literally copy exactly what everybody else has done. ! Question, then a space, then your question. You can see UK Gamer did it and Parasita did it. Your period breaks the command. ! Question is you just calling the command. That's how you use commands in live stream chats. You can't change anything. You can't add a comma, a period, a dash. It's literally just ! Question, or it will not work, because Nightbot won't recognize it. But yeah, I would love a really accessible third-person rogue with a good checkpoint system. And I don't think a good checkpoint system is like antithetical to a rogue, because I do like the idea of like meta progression. That was one challenge with Gunfire Reborn. Like if we wanted to do a run, it was like, okay, the run's going well. I guess we're going to bed at midnight instead of 11, right? Because it just keeps going. It doesn't stop. Like the run keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. So you've got to like manage your time well. That's why I like a good checkpoint system. It's like, okay, cool, we beat the first area. Now let's let's take a break, you know? If I wasn't going to design a game like that, Parasito, I would love to be on the team of the next big looter shooter, because I think I've got a lot of good input on a live service looter shooter, like how to do it ongoing, how to think about contextual power, how to think about, you know, how you structure the content. I think there's a lot of ways that looter shooters could be, they could be better. I think they could be done better. I think it could be handled better. So if not some type of a really fun rogue like we get in, you know, like I really liked how Gunfire Reborn felt very influenced by Borderlands. I really like RoboQuest. I wish RoboQuest was on PlayStation, because I can't play it co-op right now with my wife because I don't have 2 Xboxes. So that one is currently only on Xbox and Steam. Rogue Necro says, not a gaming question, I'm just curious. Do you have any plans to add variety to Reforge Feroce, like flavored coffee or K-Cups, or you're kind of just vibing with the light, medium, and dark? Coffee sales are the slowest that they've probably ever been, so I don't have any plans on spending any more money in it. I don't like to mention it more than I already do. I feel like we have to do quite a bit of, like, you know, we're getting members, we're doing member streams, we're doing stuff on Friday night. And then I periodically will do something with Into the AM or glasses, and then I mention the coffee. I'm done beating people over the head with the ways they can support. I feel like I've listened back to shows, and I just don't like the way that it sounds. So I've got it in frame. I'm not going to wail on people to be like, hey, we've got this stuff you can do. It's there. It's available. If you want to do it, great. If not, cool. And I always respond to demand and impetus. And when something slows down, I'm not going to react to that and like panic or oversell it. Like, oh my gosh, guys, coffee. Or I'm also not going to then invest more money in it either. That's just kind of how I've always done this. I respond to demand and impetus. So, like, we were doing things on Friday nights that people just didn't enjoy. And once that is communicated to me, I stop doing that. I'm like, oh, if people aren't enjoying that, I'm not going to do that. And so I always like to respond to demand and impetus, because that means the people that are tuning in are getting what they want. And so with the coffee, I don't know what happened. We made a bunch of changes. I think that hurt it. I know last year when we switched to Shopify, everybody had to suddenly like go like log in, and they lost. Some people like I think people feel like they lost something, like they lost their account or their history or whatever. And the minute we switched to Shopify, everything came to a much slower rhythm. So I didn't know that was going to happen. There's no way to know that that's going to happen. And now that we've switched back, it's kind of about the same. I think, you know, I just think whenever you make changes, I just think it makes people feel like, you know, there's a little apprehension when there's a lot of changes. So, all right, next question. We got one here from UK Gamer. Help cure my boredom. I have PlayStation vouchers and can't decide between Stellar Blade or Rise of the Ronin. As someone who's played both, which would you suggest out of the two? It depends on your preferences. I like Stellar Blade more, but Rise of the Ronin is a much bigger game. You know? Rise of the Ronin is a much bigger game. It's like I'm going to turn the timer off when we do Q&A so the question stays up if I want to leave it up. I forgot I was running the timer. Yeah, huge open world, tons of different play styles and weapons and stances, and that may be everything you're looking for. I enjoyed Stellar Blade a whole lot more. I really did. Ronin, I liked it. Performance-wise, it was inconsistent. Graphics-wise, inconsistent. I also didn't enjoy how near the end of the game, I invested in all these stances that I really liked. Very sword-based, you know, very parry and block-based. And then I was fighting people who were throwing rockets and bombs and lighting the ground on fire and flying around like Iron Man. And I didn't like that. It felt very cheap. It was like, what's happening here? Like, I wanted to do sort of like what Sekiro did, and Ghost of Tsushima did the same thing. Everything you had been learning up to that point was then put to the test. The Ishin fight in Sekiro, and then that final fight in Tsushima, you're constantly changing because you're like having to rely on all the things that you've learned. And I felt like the end game of Ronin was not that at all. It was a bunch of cheesy, corny, overpowered enemies that I just cheesed them right back. It wasn't satisfying. I whooped the tar out of some enemies, not because I was better, but because they were annoying. And I was like, well, if you're going to be cheesy, I'll be cheesy right back. It didn't feel like when you beat Ishin, you're like, I finessed that fight. I nailed all the parries. I nailed all 3 cycles of the fight. I nailed all the blocks and dodges. Like, you feel like your skill is the reason you got through it. And in Ronin, I just felt like it got really corny. I was like, okay, you're going to fly around like Iron Man? That's fine. I'll just keep switching characters and just spam you. Like, I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight fights like that. So I felt like Ronin didn't thematically end all that well, though. And again, you might love that. I mean, you might love the fighting style and the open world and the feel and the vibe of Ronin. There's a lot there to be praised, but it felt like more like an incomplete package to me. So, Kingslayer says, you see the 360 store finally closed down. Yeah, I didn't quite understand what the problem with that was. Does that mean I don't think that means you just can't buy anything from it anymore, right? That doesn't affect backwards compatibility. Like, if I go right now on my Xbox and I go to all the games I own in my library, I can still install 360 games, can I not? I don't need the 360 store to be up and running to do that, do I? I saw people making it seem like this was a threat to backwards compatibility. I was like, I don't think that's what's happening. I just can't purchase the games anymore because, let's be honest, who's doing that? Who was going back and buying 360 games? I saw people trying to make it seem like a negative thing, and I was like, no, why does this matter? Who's really, was anybody doing that? I want to see the sales reports. Like, it's a threat to preservation? How is it a threat to preservation? Oh, so you're saying, I don't want to read too much into what you're saying, but your argument would be, for preservation to be maintained, the game should always be available for sale. Is that the core of what your argument would be? I don't know if I disagree with you. I think that probably is true, that in order for a game to be genuinely preserved, it needs to be available. There needs to be availability. It can't just be, well, hopefully you're one of the lucky ones that owned it before it disappeared from the store. Right? Like when a game gets delisted from a store or whatever. I guess I could see that side of it. I guess I could see that side of it being concerning, in that those games are now no longer preserved in the truest sense of the word because you can't go get them anymore. I see both sides. It's like, and I've talked about this a lot with game preservation, is you're not going to see companies fight for game preservation if they can't make money off of it. So, expecting Xbox to house every game that came out during the 360 era in a digital storefront, expecting them to house that, maintain that, and have those available, is that a reasonable expectation? I don't know if it is. I don't know if I disagree that, like, that's the ideal. It would be great if you could right now open up Nintendo and buy any Nintendo game that you wanted. I don't like the way they do it behind Nintendo Online. If I want to just go buy Punch-Out, I should just be able to go buy Punch-Out, right? If I want to go buy, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, I should just be able to do that, right? I agree with you that that's the ideal. But I don't know how you would expect a company to maintain that in perpetuity for forever. It's a unique problem. It's like, hey, we need you to maintain this insanely large library of games. Oh, and by the way, that means everything right now also needs to be available, 15 years from now. So 15 years from now, I need to be able to boot up a PlayStation Store and buy Ghost of Tsushima. This is why PC is so great. Your Steam library never goes away. Sure. And you would hope that, you know, the number of games that get delisted and removed is you know, usually an exception to the rule. Steam does it. Yeah, Steam's operating costs, they keep their operating costs pretty low too. If you want to buy Pokemon Heart of Gold, let me go buy it, Nintendo. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't see companies doing it because there's no reason for them to. They're motivated by money. As long as the consoles don't let you install from external storefronts or play your own burned media, the company responsible for the lockdown should keep the content available. What do you mean by lockdown? Oh, you're saying as long as they don't let you install from external storefronts or burned media. I see what you're saying. You're saying that if they remove it and you can't buy it anymore, you should be able to preserve it another way. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't think you're ever going to motivate Nintendo, Sony, or Microsoft to do this if they can't make money off of it. If I physically can't install your game anymore, you should make it so that I can do it myself. But then that opens up the door for basically saying piracy is okay, and they're not going to do that. I know you're not advocating for that, but that's how the companies would view it. They would be like, you're opening up Pandora's box. We can't do that. Because again, they're motivated by money. It's the Xbox 360 store being closed. You won't be able to boot up a 360 and buy the games. It does not mean you won't be able to buy these games from the Xbox Series X store. Wait, so right now, can you go through your Xbox Series X and buy a 360 game? Like a backwards compatible 360 game? Is that going to still be allowed, Paul? They did that for Marvel vs. Capcom 2 for PS3. They removed it from the PSN store. Nintendo would make a crap ton of money if they put all the Pokemon games in the Nintendo store. It's probably true. That's probably true. They aren't all there. It's not the same library, says Release the Kraken. Paul says, no, but the plan is to list these games. Yeah, I mean, if the game company then continues to make the game available digitally for you to buy, I think that that's fine. That's at least some measure of game preservation. Yeah. I've continued to say that game preservation's great and we should seek after it. Your biggest dilemma is it's really tough to make money off of game preservation. If the companies can't make money off of it, they're not going to do it. You're asking them to basically be a charity. I'm not saying that you aren't asking for a good thing or a noble thing, but you're asking a company to spend a bunch of money in order to not really make any, and they're never going to do that. They're never going to get approval to do that. They're publicly traded companies. These types of decisions would be scrutinized, you know, and they would say, hey, what are you doing? That's incredibly expensive and you're not making any money on any of that. As long as they're allowing you to continue to download 360 games you bought on your 360, there shouldn't be an issue. Now, I don't know if that's the case, but that should be the standard. That's how it works right now, Eugene. I can download and play any game that I own from the 360 era, but the 360 store is getting closed down, and many are saying that means those games will not be available for purchase. And I'm like, I think that that's going to be commonplace going forward. I think it's going to get harder and harder to buy really old games. You can, yeah, you can. You just can't buy it from the store, right? So there's an element of game preservation there, but it's not the game preservation that everybody wants. They already made their money. They're just doing the Disney BS of renewing the copyright every 74 years in order to keep grasping their pearls. I mean, you could probably take this to the government regulatory route, and you could argue that it stands to reason that if a game is no longer available for purchase and therefore no longer under threat of its value or potential profit is no longer under threat, it should be released into the public domain. so that it can then therefore be copied and preserved by what we would call pirates, right? These are software pirates or a form of piracy. But I think you could make a compelling case. I would be, at least in the initial stages of me thinking this through, I would be apt to agree with that. Hey, you're not selling the game anymore. It should now be released into public domain. It should become distributable through other means. If you're not selling anymore, then shut up, leave us alone. If you're actively trying to sell a product, it makes perfectly good sense to protect it and say, no, you can't pirate this because that's a threat to us making money off of it. If you're no longer attempting to make money off of it, it should be released. There should be some version of public domain that allows players to preserve it without the actual copyrighted material. Like, you wouldn't suddenly be able to make a Halo game just because the very, very first Halo was no... I'm using Halo as an example. I'm not saying this is true. But if, like, Halo was suddenly available... I'm sorry, not available for sale, and they release it into this public domain that I'm referring to, the IP of Halo wouldn't be available in the public domain. Like, well, now anybody can make a Halo game. Like, that's happening with, like, Winnie the Pooh right now, right? It got released into public domain, and now we have, like, horror movies with Winnie the Pooh. People want to complain that they can't buy a game on a 20-year-old console. I don't know if it's that, Paul. I think it's the idea of game preservation feels like it's under threat from all sides. That would be the concern, is that you're watching video game history disappear into thin air. Where can you right now legally download and buy all of Atari and Coleco games? Can you? I don't think that you can. And I think that you should be able to. Like, the fact that Twilight Zone and Alfred Hitchcock Presents has been preserved so that I can consume that now, I think is a good thing. I think that's a good thing. I'm consuming what I would stand and argue is some of the best television ever created. I'm watching what laid the groundwork for expert storytelling and formulaic television that you watch today was basically inspired by and pioneered by Rod Serling and Alfred Hitchcock. And I think it's great that that's been preserved so that I can go buy, at least I can buy a service that lets me stream it. I don't know if I could go buy it and digitally own it, but at least it's been preserved so that I can consume it. So being able to right now go buy or at least subscribe to something to where I could play River Raid and Frenzy and, Donkey Kong Jr., I think that would be a good thing for my children to be able to enjoy those games. Obviously, you would want a controller that actually works, right? That's one of the problems with, like, my dad got his Coleco working, but the controllers were barely functional sometimes. They didn't feel like they worked all that well. I love the Twilight Zone. Watch the marathon every New Year's. Because it's fantastic. Archive websites have Atari ROMs 100% protected. When you say 100% protected, does that mean you can engage with those ROMs without being guilty of software piracy? Like, is that legal? That would be my only thought, is if you're not selling it anymore, then what's the problem? Like, what's the problem? If you're not selling it anymore, people should be able to preserve it and keep it and engage with it. If there's no trust, if there's no property protection for profit, then what are we talking about here? Hey, somebody ordered some coffee. I didn't shout this one out. Well, I don't want to say your name because you just put your full name as your username. But thank you so much. I only shout out people that put in usernames. I'm not going to shout out your actual name. That doesn't seem like a good idea. Is that another shot at Xbox controllers not working? What? No. I said that you would want to have a controller that's working. That was one of the challenges when my dad... Were you not listening to the literal follow-up sentence when I said my dad got his Coleco working, but the controllers weren't working? So that's one of the main challenges when you try to play old games, is even if you have an old system that's working and you put it through a converter, sometimes your controllers don't work anymore. Good golly, man. I didn't say anything about an Xbox controller. Gosh, you guys self-report. I literally said in the sentence that followed it, I talked about Coleco controllers not working. If these companies are able to offer some form of game preservation that is either based upon making money or saying, we're not selling this anymore, it's now been released into some version of public domain. I think that that would be good. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it, because you got games that nobody even, the rights holders for some of these games don't even exist anymore. The companies are gone. It's like, I don't know how this works. Somebody would have to navigate it all. You know? Citizen JV with a question. He says, do live streams generate more subs than commentary videos? High quality uploads generate the most subs because that's what YouTube is built off of. Live streams are one of the least effective ways to generate growth for a channel, because you don't get seen or clicked on as much. Even if YouTube put my live streams everywhere on the platform and in front of as many people as possible, what would end up happening is you're still fighting a bit of a losing battle, because the vast majority of people who boot up YouTube on their mobile device or their TV or their desktop, they're looking for upload. They're looking for content anywhere from around 10 minutes to 10 to 20 minutes is probably the most consumed length of content, and there's obviously longer form, but live streams are clicked on less because most people aren't looking for that. So we obviously try to do both, and we try to do both in a really, really good way. Yeah. But we are finding that the more work we put into doing like a really, really good quality upload, that has the most potential long-term to have us meeting new people, because that's generally what people on YouTube are looking for. So you're my 200th like today. Thank you, Drummond. Guys, in about 20 minutes, we're going to be going over and hanging out with Kirk. We don't quite have 25 members yet. For the first 25 to give 5 back, and you guys are going to try and hit 500 this week. And this Friday night will be community game night with Fall Guys. Parasito says, what feature could hardware or platform teams add to their box or software that would rake in the cash? I don't have a good answer to this. I have no idea. Yeah. I don't have an answer to that. Sorry. That's like so specific. I can't think of anything. The only thing I thought of initially was sideloading Steam, so that, and that's something we've heard about the next Xbox. Now, your question's qualified, though. You're like, oh, and they would rake in the cash. I don't know if letting you sideload Steam on a console would have anybody raking in cash. I just don't know. It would be so overwhelming to the average console user to like open up Steam to be like, it would be overwhelming. I don't know if you know that feeling you get when you go to Netflix and you just scroll and you scroll and you scroll and you're like, I don't know what, there's too much here. I wonder if it would have like the inverse effect. I would love it. I would love to be able to sideload Steam onto one of my consoles so that I could just play Hades 2 in my living room, or some of these other really quirky little cool little indie titles. You know, there's a lot of really great co-op games and stuff that I would absolutely love to play on my console. The question then would be again, though, is does that translate into them raking in tons of cash? I don't know. To answer your question another way about another feature, I can't think of anything. Yeah, I can't think of anything. Another question here from Jazzification. He says, would you buy the PS5 Pro if you didn't need it for work? Yes, I would. Because whenever I first started experiencing like higher FPS, it wasn't hard for me to see why I liked it more, because I came from a background of playing on a PC, Quake 3 Rocket Arena, turning off textures and lighting effects and turning a bunch of settings off to get the best possible performance. So I was very much already familiar with the idea that like smooth, faster performance was something that I preferred. and something that I liked. So it was already kind of in my mind that the first time I experienced Destiny at 60 FPS, it was like, I'm never going back, right? So they're not advertising it yet, but based on everything I've heard about the PS5 Pro, they would win me over as a consumer by saying, oh, you can run, a 4K ray tracing mode and get 60, because we're going to do upscaling to give you the 4K, so the internal resolution is going to be much lower. I'd be like, I don't know what any of that means, but that sounds great because it's going to look prettier and I'm still going to get 60 FPS. So I still think I would find it compelling as a consumer, because if you go back in time, when I sat at E3 2019 and I watched the Project Scarlet marketing, I was not a super big time in the know gamer. I primarily played one game. I played Destiny. And yet I still knew what their marketing sounds awesome. No load times, up to 120 FPS. My gosh, that sounds incredible. Like, even back then, I understood a lot of those things way, way lower than I understand now. I'm still not like a tech guy. Like, I don't get big into the tech, but I understand, the challenges with performance versus frame rate. Even back then, that's what I wanted. So in a similar vein, if I wasn't a content creator and I saw a commercial for the PS5 Pro and I'd already been enjoying my PS5 and I've been playing all these games, I'd be like, dude, yes, give me a stronger version of this. I would sign me up right away. I wouldn't even hesitate. It's why I bought a Series X so quickly back in 2020. That's what I wanted. I was more of an Xbox guy. I was like, yo, give me the Series X. I bought it first. I thought I was going to primarily play there. That's what I thought was going to happen. I bought my PS5 I think 4 months later or something like that. It was not just because it was hard to get, but that just wasn't my primary platform. So it didn't take a priority, So I think even as a non-content creator, I would watch a commercial for the PS5 Pro and be like, yep, give me that. So ready to console war. He didn't say anything about Xbox. Oh, I think you're behind Team Ambush. Fun than that. The controller thing the guy said. Mile High with a question. I recently finished Witcher 3. Suggestion for filling the new void in my gaming life. Love The Witcher 3. You dislike difficult games. Oh, I mean, there's a whole... Well, I would need to know why you like The Witcher 3. Because if you liked all the dialogue and all the RPG elements, you would want to pick something like, I don't know, probably Baldur's Gate 3 or something. If you really, really dug just all the time spent in dialogue and interacting with people and that sort of influencing where quest lines ended up. If you liked The Witcher 3 because of the open world third person combat, then you'd want to find something in that vein. You'd want to pick up a Ghost of Tsushima maybe. Something like that. It depends on what it was in The Witcher 3 that you like so much. Yeah, Cyberpunk right now, you like the RPG elements in the story. You might really, really like Baldur's Gate 3. You really, really might like Cyberpunk right now. That's a good suggestion from Paul there. Especially with the Phantom Blade DLC. Living World. Yeah. Yeah. Cyberpunk, if you don't mind the fact that you're shooting instead of doing the melee and the magic. And then Baldur's Gate 3. Mass Effect would be tough because Mass Effect is good, but it might feel kind of dated, Baldur's Gate 3 is turn-based. It's not action. So, again, if you liked the moment-to-moment action of The Witcher, you probably wouldn't like Baldur's Gate. But if you loved the RPG elements in the story and you like making choices and it impacting things, Baldur's Gate 3, you could live in that world for the rest of the year and probably still be having a good time. I don't know if Baldur's Gate 3 would deliver the open world, living world feeling. Somebody else would have to chime in there. I think Cyberpunk very much felt like an open world, living world. Yeah. Surge606 Gaming. I've been playing Elden Ring co-op and really enjoying it. Do you feel that the Souls community is toxic and gatekeeping when it comes to summon, co-op, etc.? I think that the people that get stuck on this, like being gatekeepy and caring about summons or co-op, I think they're the same. I think they live in the same neighborhood. I think all these people live in the same neighborhood. They just hang out on Twitter. They're just terminally online losers. Like that's what they are. I've run into more Souls players that just don't care about that stuff than do. They hang out here. They comment on my videos. I see them hanging out in live chats. Most Souls players don't give a frick. They're like, you can play Elden Ring however the heck you want, man. You want to summon? You want to do co-op? Dude, go ahead. Have fun, man. I don't care. Now, they might take pride in the fact that they don't do that. You know, they might take pride in the fact that they don't summon or they don't use magic or they don't use co-op. But I don't know. Generally speaking, I think most of the people that love Souls games don't look at Elden Ring and think, you didn't really beat it, you summoned or you did co-op. Those are just losers on Twitter. Like, the faster we realize that all these people hang out in the same neighborhood, and if you just don't go to that neighborhood, you don't have to hear what they have to say. Seriously. I want you to imagine right now that you played through Elden Ring, and you summoned, and you and your buddy co-opted bosses, and you had a blast, and you never checked Twitter. Would you think for an instant that there are people out there that like think less of you? No, you wouldn't. One of the best things I've done recently is like, I just don't look at Twitter. It just poisons everything that you might like and enjoy. I just don't check it because who cares? You know, the platform is driven by the most extreme and the most divisive, and it's like people don't talk like that. It's like a video game. You're going into a video game where everything's turned up to 11, you know? It's like if you really like to have conversations and to, you know, get to know people, you're not going to go to the club where the music's turned all the way up. You know, if you like to talk about video games and you like to meet other people who love video games, I think Twitter is the literal worst place you can go to talk about them. Because the volume's turned all the way up to 11. Everyone's shouting. You didn't really beat that. You know, your platform stinks. My platform's better. Like, okay, cool. If I don't go to your neighborhood, I don't have to constantly hear about who's winning the pickup football game and why you're better than these other people. Like, I just don't have to hear it. I don't have to listen to it. That's just kind of my current posture on it. It's like, and truth be told, I don't know where I read this. Maybe I heard it. I can't remember if I heard this from like a Modern Wisdom clip or did I read this in, you know, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. It was basically like, outside of physical harm, because obviously if somebody physically harms you, that's real, that's objective. But it was basically arguing, the statement was, somebody can only harm you if you give them the power to harm you. If you rob them of that power, then it turns them into an impotent nothing. It's like, you can't harm me. Who cares? So if someone, you know, tells you that you really didn't beat Elden Ring because you summoned or you played co-op, that only has any sort of power if you give it power. If you just sort of shrug and say, well, that's just like your opinion, man, and you go on with your day, they have zero power. They've not inflicted anything on you other than they let you know what they think. Like, that's just information. That's valuable information. It's like, well, now I know never to talk to you because you seem unpleasant and gatekeepy. You seem like you probably have a hard time making friends, and you just move on with your day. You know? I don't know. It's like, I just went back into Elden Ring. I was like, I'm going to play it my way. I'm going to summon. I'm going to bring in co-op people if I feel like it. And then after I beat Mesmer, I was just like, I don't really feel like playing right now. Because it's about what I want to do. It's about what I enjoy. It's not about being concerned with like, oh, is somebody going to ego me online and say you didn't beat that DLC? Okay. What? Huh? It's like once you let go of that and don't care, I just think you approach life and games and everything very differently. Summoning is a game mechanic baked into the game. The game wants you to use summons. I mean, engaging the argument at this point, Dave, I don't even want to engage some of the arguments because I don't want to justify them as if they're legitimate. Like someone's like, you didn't really beat Elden Ring because you summoned or you played co-op. I just want to say, okay, you're welcome to think that 2 + 2 = 5. I don't care to argue with you. Fine, you can think that. That's fine. I don't even like justifying it as if it's a good argument. If I'm going to spend my energy engaging in an argument, I want it to be one that's worth engaging with. And I feel like those types of arguments should be beneath gaming dialogue. It's like, who cares what some gatekeepy, like, weirdo thinks? Like, who cares? I don't even want to justify it by engaging with it and be like, well, actually, they put summons in the game. They've designed encounters around summons. Miyazaki uses summons. Like, doing that is actually making it seem like what they say is worthy of engagement, and it isn't. I feel like they're not deserving of the response. They're just not. Your energy is better spent elsewhere. Your energy's better spent. You're arguing with somebody that's not going to be like, oh, I see, you've made a very good point. Thank you. I think differently now. No, they're just a jerk and a troll. You know? That's what they want. They want you spinning. They want you to spin your tires in their mud. They love that. Right? They just love it. They want to watch you just spin your tires and spend all this time making an argument. And they're like, lol, still didn't beat it, lol. It's like you're wasting your time, man. It's just pointless. Just play games and have fun with them. Extract the value from them that you want, and then go to the next thing. Take a little bit of stoicism and hedonism, put it in a blender, and that's how you should approach video games. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Just ignore these people that don't add good energy or value to your life. All they do is extract or take away or distract. You know, that's more of like a stoic like mindset. And then a little bit of hedonism. Like, it's about you. It's about the enjoyment that you get out of it. Who cares what these people say? At the end of the day, they're nothing. Their opinion's immaterial. It's not real. It's just in their brain. It's not something that physically can do anything to you. It's not a sword or a gun or a hatchet, you know? There's nothing to fear. It's just somebody yelling. Just somebody typing. Oh. Reject your sense of injury and the injury itself disappears. Yeah, it was basically somebody elaborating on that. Yes. The idea that there is no harm if you don't give people the ability to harm. Like, you take it away from them. Right? All right, let me get Kirk on the line here. What the? I don't know what Discord's doing over here. That's why watching other people play games that you are playing can be stressful, because you can easily get lost in making comparisons. Oh, for sure. Comparison's the thief of joy. I mean, you know what I mean? Hello, hello. Can you hear me, bud? Hang on.
I don't know why it's the call, though.
It was weird. Like my camera wasn't on or anything. I don't know. I don't know what was going on. All right, let's get the right image file up here. I think at this point I'm just gonna need to build another scene. So that way when we do this, I'll just change the buttons on my stream deck instead of having to recrop scenes. Okay.
Oh, it's 30.
I fixed it. Oh, let's see. Get a Stalker 2 trailer up here. That's kind of the catalyst to this conversation. Oh.
What's going on, chat? I was thinking we should have done like the best of Xbox 360. It's like end of an era. Not that they haven't done a great job preserving a lot of stuff with the backwards compatibility. Like I was going through to figure out if there's anything I wanted to buy before the store shut down, and it looks like everything is preserved on the new marketplace.
Yeah, that's what people are saying. Is like, no, you can still go buy. They're like, you just have to go to the new marketplace.
As long as it's backwards compatible. But like if there's a game that you want or DLC that you want that's like only on the 360 interface, then you'd have to grab it now.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, give me 1 second.
But I was surprised by how much of that is covered with their back catalog.
Well, chat, talk to Kirk about that for just a second. I'll be right back.
Coach Kirk, that's right. Been coaching him up. What's up, Belfagor? $15 is still gaming. Oh my god. Dude, I'll take it. I'm getting up there age-wise, so I'll take it. Is 30 and still gaming old enough to be 40 and still gaming now? Like, does he need to change his name? Yeah, I think they are, Dave. It's a pretty beloved console generation. Mired by the red ring, unfortunately. My weekend was good, Sadiqa. Thank you for asking. Played some college football. Played some Fortnite. That's really about it, actually. I haven't taken the time to get into Suicide Squad. I want to. I want to get some of my money's worth for that game and play some of the content. I dropped the ball on that. I'm usually very much on the ball when it comes to requesting codes, and I just did not know that there was a period to request codes, so I didn't get in. I don't know when the open beta is. I don't even know with that game. I'm kind of annoyed about it, actually, because that's sort of my whole review machine is basically predicated on getting into stuff early for my content, so yeah. I have no idea how to get into that game at this point. It's a little irksome. I feel like I dropped the ball there. Dave, no. Citizen, I haven't been, but I plan on going back to it. Yeah, I have an Xbox. Yeah, I have no. idea how to get into that beta now. Sounds like August 5th. August 5th they're letting people in. No, I don't even know. Yeah, I'm mad about that. I can't pay attention to everything, but that's a big miss for me. To have not requested that.
All right. What I came back. You're mad about something? What are you mad about?
I dropped the ball on requesting Marvel Rivals beta access. I don't know when they had that open request period, but I missed that window, and now I have no idea how to get into that game. People were asking me if I played it. Did you get into that?
No, I wasn't super interested. Like, I'm obviously interested in the game. Like, I think it looks like it could be a fun time. Like, I think my son will like it, but it was like a sign up on their website, and I was just like, I told people about it, and then that was kind of the end of it.
Yeah, I don't think I signed up, unfortunately.
I'm assuming they'll just do an open one where like everybody can play.
Yeah, but I haven't seen any detail on it. Yeah, I don't think I have anything. I did sign up for Valorant. I signed up for Fragpunk, but I never saw one for Marvel Rivals. I usually have my ear to the ground on that type of stuff, so that's just like a big miss for me. Yeah, Concord blinded me with its greatness. Yeah, Pulse Gaming. Very true. I really like that game. It's unfortunate what's probably ultimately going to happen to it. I don't know how they put it out. Like, I don't know how you put that game out right now. You got to figure something out. I mean, look at Multiverses. Look at the fact that they were willing to scrap all the progress that they had made and take it offline for a year just to try to recapture the moment that they had. Like, that's how valuable that is, that you would go offline for a year. So, like, just being online, being live is not as much of a benefit as people might think that it is. Like, you don't need to go live if your game is not going to have an audience. If you have the data, you know your game is not going to have an audience. So do whatever you need to do to your game to have an audience before you release it.
Yeah. Lone Wolf saying he can get you a code for
Lone Wolf, hit me up, bro. Absolutely. It would have to be not on PC, but I can roll with Xbox or PlayStation. Well, Saints, you too, my man. If you guys can get me a code, that would be sick. I just can't do PC. Valorant is in open beta now, but like a month ago it wasn't. So I've been playing it for a while now, and I really like it. I'm very surprised. I thought I would be a Valorant hater. I think Valorant is pretty good. I enjoyed it. I think I might like it better than Apex. Apex is just a cluster mess.
Well,
and cheating and
I tried to tell people, I was like, I should not have even liked Valorant, and I remember having fun with it. Like,
it's fun.
I was playing it to learn it so I could shoutcast it, and then I ended up really liking it.
It's a little bit obtuse, like it's a little bit complicated, but I was surprised how many like plays I was making. Like, it looks like it's really, really hard. And I'm sure it is against, people that are better than me. But just like obviously being queued into beginner matches with real people. We were definitely playing real people. And yeah, just like being able to peek corners and get headshots and stuff. Like, I mean, I think I had like a couple games where I had like a triple kill or whatever. Like, it's very satisfying doing that. I thought I would just get like dunked on, just get.
I remember it feeling a little bit better too once I could get into ranked, because one or two good games and you feel like you get matched against people that are just kind of walking all over you. And I felt like once we got into ranked, the games were closer, more fun, more balanced.
The Skull and Bones meme is really great. I love keeping that alive, but I haven't touched that game in at least 2 months, probably 3. But I do enjoy the little meme that we have going, guys. I think I will go back to it and try to get some stuff. Like, I think I'll try and do some of this season pass, get some of the goodies, and then I definitely want to check out that 3rd season with the like the Chinese cultural influence and stuff, like the Season of the Dragon or whatever they're calling it. That looks really cool. I like how that looks. Ubisoft does good like aesthetic seasonal content stuff with games like For Honor and Rainbow Six. I like that type of stuff that they do. They put a lot of effort into that.
Okay. All right,
Anything
guys.
I need to know about this? We haven't talked about it that much. We're just gonna get in there, just do it.
We're just gonna shoot the bull about the rest of the year,
man.
We might be looking at. My general premise is that when the 4th quarter gets this full, it gets slippery and stuff just starts.
You think it's full? I think we're getting a break compared to last year.
I don't know.
Last year was ridiculous.
Xbox is primed to drop 3 big titles in the 4th quarter now. So
about time. It's only been 8 years.
All right, guys, I'm gonna smash a link in chat. That's where we're headed. Help us out when we get over there, and smash the like button. We only need a couple more members, and I'll drop a 5 bomb. We'll hit 25, and we'll see you guys over there. I'm gonna redirect this as well. I'm gonna start the stream in just a second. Hang on, my camera doesn't look.
Yeah, let's make sure my audio is good. It's been all right past couple times.
Give me a sentence.
We're going to talk about some games today and whether or not they are ready to come out.
Okay. Yeah, I think the problem is some weeks I have you up and I've got a compressor on it now. So if you get too loud, it should keep it from like getting into the red.
Okay. Sometimes I overproject.
Well, your conversational voice is different than your like, what the heck is going on voice? And it's like the compressor should help.
What the heck is going on?
Who are these people? Like, yeah.
Stalker 2, what's happening?
Every white guy has the ability to like turn into Jerry Seinfeld. He's just like on command. All right, here we go.
Yep.
Thanks so much for checking out this video where we are talking about game delays in 2024. Could there be more delays headed our way as Stalker 2 now shifts into the 4th quarter? We still have yet to get release dates for Avowed and Indiana Jones. Xbox may be examining timing there and thinking through where they want things to land, not trying to step on each other's toes. We even saw people sort of discussing on Twitter, like, is it time to maybe kick something to next year? I've always said when the 4th quarter of a year starts to fill up, it gets a little slippery because games are going to start slipping into next year, either for polish or just strategic timing purposes. Now, I'm going to end the previous stream about Soulframe and bring people over with Redirect. And Kirk, thanks so much for being here to discuss this situation with game delays.